So
I have something, yes. Ajahn said that understanding changes the way of life, but develop it now. And we often hear that develop it now. And Ajahn says, what sees, what understands, what is seen. And there has to be more considering, but considering is not the same as thinking about the story of realities. So I think it's good if Ajahn can elaborate more on this subject, because when people here develop it now, they wonder how to develop it now.
I think that when we talk about it's different from usual or daily life as before, when there's no understanding at all, it means that there is the understanding of reality as it's now. This is different from daily life before hearing the teaching. That's why it developed very gradually, very, very slowly before it can show up as it's now. It's acquainted to that which is as a reality. That's why from moment to moment, it conditions the next moment gradually, very, very little at a time, unknown, like holding the knife's handle. So it's not any other way at all. It's only understanding whether it's there or not yet. If it's not yet, it doesn't have wrong understanding that it have to do something, but it is reminded that what is now appearing is the object of right understanding, little by little developing to understand unknowingly. It's there, it's there, it's there. It's the object of understanding for sure, because it has its characteristic as seeing. Now it sees, but the understanding, seeing as an I of self or anyone at all, is only beginning, just beginning to develop each moment, and one very fast or rapid moment at a time. Only that very, very short moment of understanding. That's why comparing in a day, we think about other thing a lot, almost all the time. It's that any moment there is some idea about that which is sees now can be known as it is. No one, no thing, no hearing, no sound. At moment of it's there, and it is the object. It begins to be directly observed or the object of awareness little by little, but the true nature of it is still covered up by eons and eons ago of not understanding the truth without any word. It now sees, that's all. It sees, usually I see, but now it now sees, only seeing. Little by little, from life to life. That's why it's the beginning of understand parami, of patience parami, khanti, and virya, to understand that Buddha enlightened the truth of that which now appear as it is just there for a long time. But in truth, it's not there at all. The breaking world, otherwise, how can it wear away the idea of self from that which sees little by little? So only understanding itself can understand the truth of how much understanding of that which is now appearing as just a reality which sees. And it's so true, Satya Parami. It cannot be other reality. It sees now, it appears now as it sees. So the firm confidence of the truth, Satya Parami, is that from not understanding anything about it at all, it begins with understanding that that is the object, which does not show up as no one and no thing, because it's covered up by the rapidity of the arising and falling away of different realities right now appearing. not just one moment of experiencing that which impinges on the eyes, but so many things come instantly as soon as one opens up one's eyes. It's there already. That's why the truth is that it cannot be as it looks like now, but it has to be just the tiny reality, very short, arising and falling away instantly all the time, because it is succeeded by the next one instantly. So who knows that which is different from the other, because it is replaced by that characteristic which follows instantly all the time. That's why learning to understand each different one, to begin to have clear understanding of each one, no matter what, as it is. That which is seen is not that which sees. That's all. Just have this understanding, right understanding, little by little, of that which appears until it is moment of understanding, surprisingly, unexpectedly, different from usual, because it begins to be a little clearer, and later on, a little clearer, more and more, little by little, before it can be realized that it's not that very, very short, arising and falling away by nimitta, appearing as the nimitta of seeing, the nimitta of thinking, the nimitta of hearing, liking, everything. Just keep on the truth that it's there. It's not a rush to experience the nature of it, which is not permanent at all, but to begin to understand whether is there any moment today thinking about the truth of that which appears, even its hardness. It's not known as it is, as it's really a reality, but it's known as something all the time. So from hearing again and again and again, bright understanding develops from moment to moment, unknowingly, until when there is a little more understanding of the whatever is there naturally in the day. By conditions, or by conditions, that is the patience, understanding the truth. It takes quite a long time to be acquainted to that which experiences an object. We don't have to say that it experiences the object, but when it's like, it's like. When it's dislike, it's dislike. When it's memory, it's memory. That's all. All dhammas in a day to be known as it has to be, as it is. It cannot be changed. It cannot be taken for anything because it's not there as long as we think or as long as it appears now. But in truth, nothing is there. Just very rapidly arising and falling away, never to return. And this is a firm confidence of the truth, Satya Bharani, never change. So it can be object of understanding, where there is more understanding and letting go the clinging and ignorance, which is now follow staying instantly unknown. That's all, just understanding itself. It can understand more, a little more, a little more. It's just like now as it is. Who knows how much understanding is there hidden? It doesn't show up. Or when it's time, it's there unexpectedly. This is the understanding of anattanness, no control by conditions. Even what is there now is gone. That is the truth. That can be directly experienced when panya is enough to let go. No understanding of that which now appears, that is not anything permanent. It's only very short moment of appearing and then gone unknowingly until it's known, just one by one. different characteristics, the more there is the understanding of reality. There can be more confidence of that, which is not the other, or not that can be taken for anything permanent, or not as we take it for something all the time.
And on the point about the changes, the way of life that is changed, people expect for there to be a difference in the behavior and the habits and so on. Like Robert quoted a passage that you'd written, Nina, about some friends who asked you what changes there were because the behavior seemed the same and they couldn't see what the difference was after listening so long. But we're not talking about the outer appearance or the situation or the tendencies, the likes, the dislikes. We're talking about the understanding that isn't visible to others, the understanding now of what appears, of what is seen, of what is heard. And it has to develop so gradually. And I think on the point about the considering and the considering carefully, I think it was last week or the week before, John made the comment about how it's the opposite of I know already, when there's the idea that, oh, I've heard this and I know it, or I don't need to hear this again because this point is clear. This is not the careful considering at all. So even though we've heard so many times that now what is seen is just that which is visible, has it been considered carefully enough to let go of the idea of something there, someone there? So as you said, it's not just a matter of thinking again and again, but really considering the truth of what has been read, what has been heard, what the Buddha has taught again and again, not to be able to show a difference in one's appearance or lifestyle, but just for the sake of understanding itself.
Sarah, could you elaborate a little bit on the sentence, we are talking about the understanding now that isn't visible to others? I like that sentence. I don't know why.
Because now, who knows for anyone whether there is any understanding at this moment? We can guess and we can speculate, or we can say, oh, Ajahn has understanding, but completely unknown. Even the understanding itself, when it arises, usually not known if it's just a little. So it's not the outer appearance or what is apparent to others, but the reality itself, which just arises and falls away instantly. Anatta, it cannot last for a moment. It's gone straight away.
But we often hear, develop it now, and then we may get lost how to begin to develop.
And the getting lost is because we take it for I that should do something, which is the opposite of understanding. So when we hear the Buddha say, or Ajahn or the text say, develop understanding, as soon as there's an idea of doing something, it's not the understanding that that reality has to develop by conditions. So now there's listening and considering and conditions for a little understanding, and it develops, but not by us doing anything, not by I developing it. It's just like when we were talking about metta last time. Everyone would like to develop metta, but metta doesn't develop by I developing it or trying to develop it. It develops because there is the understanding that conditions that metta to arise and develop. So this is the distinction.
Yes, go ahead.
It is the understanding itself which leads to the development of understanding or metta or whatever is kusala, not I developing it. Carry on ahead, Jeet.
What I was going to saying that when there is an panya that understand Dhamma, right? That time it sees the anatta, and its panya will not want panya to have more panya, but attachment wants more panya. So, but when panya understand Dhamma as Dhamma, panya doesn't think of having more panya, like want to have panya, right? But lopa is like that.
Exactly. Loba comes in so quickly, and develop it now means there is only this moment. So if there's no understanding now, then that moment has gone. It just means that the now is emphasized because it cannot be any other time. If we think we'll wait until it's a more peaceful environment, or when we've got our books open, or when we're listening in the Dhamma discussion, it's not the understanding of developing now.
And Nina, as regards your question of how is the understanding developed, I think the Buddha explained, and it's clear that it's not a question of how, but a question of what the conditions for its development are. And I think this is illustrated by the sutta that we're all familiar with that makes the reference to the adze handle, which Ajahn mentioned a minute ago. But in that sutta, there's also the simile of the hen with the eggs. And it says that if the eggs have not been covered, incubated and nurtured properly, even though the hen might wish, oh, that my chicks might hatch safely, they won't be able to. But on the other hand, if the eggs have been covered and incubated and nurtured properly, then even though no such wish arises on the part of the hen, the chicks will hatch. And so from this we can see that it's not a matter of how it's done, but of the right conditions being in place for the development to happen. And we can only consider what those conditions are, and that knowing what those conditions are can give one the confidence to that it is a matter of the right conditions rather than a matter of pursuing the goal.
But you mentioned the sutta, and I didn't quite hear or follow what you said about which sutta and the simile. You mean the handle of the knife? Or?
Yes, that sutta, which is Samyutta Nikaya 22, number 101, I think, in the Kanda Samyutta. And it gives the simile of the adze handle, which is on a slightly different point, but it also refers to the hen sitting on the eggs, and the conditions for the eggs to hatch.
I didn't quite hear.
The hen sitting on the eggs.
Oh, the hen on the eggs. Yes. I know what you mean. Yeah.
And the Buddha explains that if the right conditions are there, the eggs will hatch, whether or not the hen wishes to have chickens hatching. And the wish for the eggs to hatch is not a factor in whether or not they will hatch. It's a question of the right conditions being in place.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Ajahn, would you want to say anything regarding this? Thanachan, are you there?
Sorry, again. It's not a matter of trying, but it's the matter of what is there now. Can there be the understanding of the truth of it? Because what is seen is not the truth yet. For example, seeing a flower is the truth. Seeing a flower, what is seen, is it a flower or what can be seen? Beginning to think about the truth little by little, consider the truth a little more. When there is hearing about the truth of it, not just thinking that I know, it's not known yet because it needs more considering about the absolute truth of each reality as it is. For example, now, there are many things seen, but is it instantly or just one moment, very short, to experience just one, that which impinges on the eyebase, that's all. That is not the whole flower at all. That's why understanding this as a basic, the base, the foundation for understanding, to understand whatever is there by conditions. There can be more attention to the truth of it, not just try to be concentrated on it, not try to concentrate on it or try to do anything. But what it says about it, it's there as it is, little by little, only that. That's why I think the while one is drinking, eating, taking a bath, there are reality which appears before hearing the teachings, no attention to any characteristic which appears at all. But it begins to be aware or attend to the characteristic which is there as. It's very short, very different. Just cold and then hot and then hot and then everything. See, it's time for conditions to arise to understand it, or not yet. But hearing again, considering it again, can condition a little more attention to the characteristic which is now, as it is right now. See, that's why we talk about hardness, because it's there anytime with other reality, but it depends on what condition, what to be object, not at will, but it's there already. That's why the Buddha taught about understand that which has a reason because it's there to be known, not that which does not arise yet or that which has fallen away, but only that which is there to understand, begin to understand that actually no one can make it arise at all. It's there already, but it is different. A moment of hearing, a moment of seeing, that is always the idea, what shall I do or what can I do? But in truth, there's no one because it's already there. So who can say that it made it arise? Because it's already arisen and fallen away instantly, all the time. Just understanding this, no matter how long, no matter how much, but it begins to understand the truth little by little. That's why whatever appears is not the matter of what shall I do, what can I do, but understand the truth of it, that it's there by conditions. And this can be the beginning of understanding what is there is by condition, and it's not always there. Yesterday, this morning, all gone, even right now. Have more confidence of the truth. This is the way to let go the idea of things and I. Not just try to do anything. That is not the way to let go. It's conditioned by the self or the idea of I all the time. That's why right understanding is there. Understand whether it takes that object firmly as something, as I, or it begins to understand no matter what, it's all gone. Not under anyone's control. And it cannot arise again. What condition? Condition, what is there now is the next one, not that which has gone. And this is life from moment to moment, that's all. Before hearing about the truth of whatever is there now, there is the idea of self, there is the idea of I, there is the idea of things and people. But in truth, what was born and what dies? And what is the meaning of born and death, born and die? And whatever is there, it's there, and we use the word to express what is it. But in truth, we take it for that. In truth, that everything is just so very short, arising and falling away. That's why just learn to understand the absolute truth. The more there is an understanding, it takes the moment instead of what can I do? What shall I do? Because it has done by those moments of hearing, considering, understanding, little by little. Nothing to do, to be done, but it's that which should be known as it is. And even understanding does not last at all. It's a reality which understands what is there as it is. From hearing, that is the level of understanding from hearing and considering. But it does not show up as it is, but it is understood as it is. To condition moment of letting go, clinging to that which appears as something, little by little, until time comes. What does it mean? Be aware of that with right understanding of the truth of its characteristic that has been heard no matter how long, how often. But when it's time to understand that even awareness is conditioned to arise because of understanding the object of truth of understanding is that which appears by conditions. And this is a subtle letting go, wrong understanding of that which appears as permanent and remembered as something or someone. In truth, only different realities arising and falling away all the time from moment to moment. Is that not true? Just have confidence of the truth, and the confidence letting go the idea of things and self by itself, naturally or secretly, unknown, because the path is so very subtle. Only understanding begins to understand and consider more and have more understanding, and listen more, consider more, and have more understanding. That's the way it is, to understand the truth of that which Buddha had enlightened and taught us about. Any moment of whatever appears, it can be known, depending on understanding. That's why this is the very subtle path. The fourth Ariya Satya. Naturally, unknowingly, how much is there developed until the moment of understanding directly with direct awareness of just one reality, but still it's not as so directly. Yet it can be more straight and more direct, so that the characteristic which arises and falls away can be the object of understanding. When it's closer and closer and closer and closer to one characteristic, with a little more understanding, little by little, that's the only way. Otherwise, how can there be more understanding of the truth of what is there now as it's so short? It's not together with hearing or thinking at all. It's just a moment of seeing and a moment of hearing and a moment of thinking. Only the object of the 6 ways can be experienced in the day. 5 ways, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and the 6th one, thinking about those reality experience to be something or to begin to understand that actually Life is just in a moment, uncontrollable, never lasts at all. Just being conditioned to be and then gone. And then condition the next one, different conditions to be different realities from birth to death. And this is the subtle letting go, the idea of sound, at moment of listening, considering, at level of intellectual understanding, which condition a moment of direct awareness, but it can be more direct until the truth, the arising and falling away, can be the object of understanding. And this is when enlightenment, that Buddha enlightened the truth, the arising and falling away of that which is now appears as permanent. Without understanding, how can there be that seeing is not hearing, and at moment of hearing there is no seeing? But now it does not appear as its truth. That's why the truth is that which can be experienced when there's the understanding enough to let go the other reality and begin to be aware of a characteristic of a reality. Little by little. What is meant by little? Because even very short moment of direct awareness, the other realities which is conditioned to arise very, very rapidly are there too, until only one becomes clear as only one, little by little. By conditions, it has to begin, and at the beginning it's not as clear, but it's not wrong understanding of that which appears as the characteristic is there to be known, not the other reality, little by little. Have confidence of that which appears as it is, as no one and no thing. Until what is there in life anytime can be object of awareness and understanding with letting go, so that it can appear as it is later, when there's more letting go because of more understanding of the truth. So now, living now, life now, is moment of understanding what is true, to have more confidence of the truth. Just begin to letting go the idea of that which appears is permanent, or it does not arise or fall away. But in truth, it's that conditioned to arise unexpectedly and then gone instantly, followed by the other instantly, unknown. What appears is only that which is seen, that is heard through the six doorways. That's all. But not as it is, arising and falling away, never to arise again, but it appears as it's still there. That's why listening with careful considering to understand the truth is the beginning of the understanding, developing at moment of understanding only. So it's moment of time to begin to see the difference between ignorance and understanding and other realities, because they are there in daily life.
Yeah, so when we hear the words develop it now, we tend to forget that it is just a reminder. And if we take it in the conventional sense, there is an idea of a self who has to develop, but that is not the truth that the Buddha taught.
That's why there has to be the very firm confidence of the truth, never change. A reality, see, it is a reality. So nobody can change, but not enough understanding. the more it's there to be known and hear more about it, more consider about it, then it can be known as a reality, as a reality. As we have heard, a reality, see, one by one. No one, only a reality. Have confidence and deeper understanding of the truth of just one word about one reality.
And like you said at the start, Nina, the thinking about the stories about understanding is not the same as the careful considering. People think about, like one of our Vietnamese friends asked a question about going to the temple or coming here and why this is better and this and that. Yes. But it's not the understanding of reality now, or because it's just the idea of having more goodness or more understanding for me, but it's not the understanding of what appears now. And last week, Jyotika talked about going to the shops with metta, or we talked about the ant story, and we think about all these different situations and how to be good, but it's all for oneself. It's not the understanding right now of Dhamma appearing. So develop understanding is a reminder that actually life is at this moment. There is reality appearing now. If there's no understanding now, then when? But no one can make it happen. That's why we talk about different dhammas that are conditioned and anatta, so as to see that it's not a story or a situation, but it's life right now. Yeah. Different realities arising and falling away. Nothing lasting at all.
And also, I think the mention of development now is intended to highlight the fact that it can only be developed now. I think that's the message there, that the development has to be now, can't be any other time.
Jonathan, if I can ask about the sutta, the hen and the eggs. I did not get quite which sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya that you mentioned.
It's in the Kanda Sangyutta, that is the 22nd Sangyutta, and it's number 101. So the reference is 22-101. I can put a link on the list, Nina.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes, very good. It's
no
a
problem.
good sutta, very good sutta, yeah.
Yes.
And on the topic of letting go, at the end of last week, Leanne, I don't know if you're following, we said we would continue this topic because you brought up what was the letting go. And Ajahn was talking about the letting go of ignorance, and she was just mentioning it now. So we said we would discuss it a bit more. So when there is understanding at those moments, there is a little letting go of ignorance for a moment, letting go of the wrong understanding of I that can develop or do anything. So it's only understanding that leads to the letting go of ignorance and all other kinds of akusala naturally, gradually. When we just have the idea of I will have more metta, or I will have metta going to the shops, it's not the letting go of the clinging to self at all. So it's only when there is understanding of the truth now that there is letting go for a moment.
But again, we talk about letting go, and they can be idea come to letting go, right? You understand the lopa is come and all that. And the thing is, all our Dhamma naturally, like we sing like this, but you won't think that the loba, all the akusala will come again, and that's naturally not trying to stop it also, because again that is again and again, like many times.
And is loba real?
Yes.
Does it have a characteristic? So there can be understanding even now of the loba arising, because it's real, it's daily life, but it's not my loba, and it's gone instantly too. So any reality can be understood, can be the object of understanding. So if there's no understanding of loba when it's apparent, when it appears, it will never be known. So it also has to be what is understood now.
Sarah, maybe this is a good link to visible object and all the other rupas that can be experienced through sense door, not the subtle ones. Are we at this intellectual level at the best understanding visible object in the same way we would understand loba? I mean, they're totally different, Cetasika and Rupa, but they're all understood by concept of the reality, right? At the best.
So there has to be the careful considering first, again and again, the considering of what it is that is visible, what is seen right now, so that the understanding gets used to what is seen as just a Dhamma, not something, not someone. And that understanding has to begin to develop to understand its nature when it appears. So no matter whether the reality appearing is visible object or loba or kindness or anger or hardness, they are just dhammas which appear. So no selection, no thought of what should be known first or what is more obvious, because it depends on understanding at this moment to just understand what appears, what can be known now.
Yeah, that wasn't the question. I'm actually referring a little bit to nimitta without trying to use the word. Do you understand where I'm coming from? The discussion on the list, and then is the level of understanding always at best
So
concept?
It's always the nimitta of the reality that appears, even when it's highly developed understanding, when it's vipassana jnana, it's the nimitta of the reality. And it doesn't matter what we call it, whether we say reality or concept, it is the sign of the reality. And it isn't just one visible object that has arisen and is known, it is the characteristic of visible object that appears by way of nimitta to understanding. So we don't have to say, oh, it's this or that visible object, but that characteristic can be known, and the understanding gets closer and closer to the truth. So it has to develop from pariyatti, intellectual understanding, to direct understanding. But even when it's direct understanding, it is the nimitta of the reality. We call it a present object, but actually the visible object is gone, but the characteristic appears. Not one visible object, but many visible objects that have fallen away. The characteristic of that reality appears to understanding.
Yes, and if we're not using the word nimitta, but we're staying with loba and visible object, just to help me. Now I'm lost for words. We say the nimitta of visible object, but in the same way, could we say the nimitta of loba or any other reality?
Yes, any reality. So now
Okay.
loba
Yeah.
now, at the moment of understanding, there's no loba because it cannot arise with understanding, but the characteristic of loba can be known directly because it's
Yes.
real. So actually it's always the nimitta of loba. So
it's always characteristic.
Yes, if there's no loba now, we can talk about it and think about it, but it's not the understanding of the characteristic that appears. So it can be known when it appears. The same with wrong view. If no wrong view is arising or is apparent, We can talk about it, but it's not the understanding of wrong view.
Yes, it's
So that's
helpful.
why, as we were saying about developing understanding, it has to be developed now, because it's not just the object in the book or in the text, but it's the reality that appears right now, the hardness
Yes.
now, the visible object now, the attachment now that can be
Yes.
known.
Yes, and you're answering very well. And I'm getting at the moment, my answer is that whatever at best is understood is the characteristic of a reality which arises now. And they're all, for me, in the same level of understanding, no matter if it's a rupa or a cetasika, which characteristic is understood. It's all very far from the reality anyway. Yes. Muted, Sarah. We cannot hear you.
Sorry, I think we can get tangled in the words, because what is visible, just that which is seen, can be known as it is. What is touched, no matter whether we call it hardness or not, it has a characteristic that can be known. If we try too hard to find the exact name of the detail or think about which process it's in, it's not the understanding of just the reality itself, which is appearing now.
Is where I got entangled too. Let's take a reality, a rupa. It's experienced at the most 17 chitta moments in sense door process. Then still talking about a reality, chittas in mind door experience the same object. And then many, many mind door processes of thinking. And then the object is a concept. But as I understand it from our posting on DSG, is that these that I just talked about are happening many, many, many times. So process 1, 2, 3, sense door, mind door, and then thinking mind door, many, many, many times for us to have an idea of anything appearing, any characteristic.
Yes, countless uncountable sense door and mind door processes. Sense door process followed by many door, mind door processes. We cannot say how many times different visible objects have been experienced before there is an idea of someone there, countless. So it's not a matter of counting, but just understanding what appears right now. Yes.
Thank you.
14 cheetahs in the sense, max 14 cheetahs in the sense door process, because the first three cheetahs are the Bhavanga cheetahs.
Yes.
When they, but they don't experience the rupa.
Right.
So 14 cheetahs that follow.
Yes.
But many, many processes. So it's not just one visible object that appears, but the nimitta of many rupas that have fallen away, or many lobas. Leanne, would you like to just explain what you're texting, which some of us don't have time to read, and bring up your points?
No, I'm not making a new point. But firstly, thank you, Sarah, for brought that up. Basically, when you mentioned that helped me to remember something Ajahn made, a point Ajahn made last week about once there is understanding of a certain word, which is which describe a reality, then there is a letting go of ignorance of that word. That's what stick with me and stayed with me for a while. So when you just mentioned about letting go, and you explain about letting go of ignorance, I remember that, and that's what I sent in the text. That's all, in the chat. That's all. Not a new point. But thank you. I appreciate Ajahn wise teaching and reminder. Thank you.
Sometimes we think of visible object, for example, as a word, but the understanding is not actually of the word, it's of the reality itself, whatever word is used. Otherwise, we cling to the word and think again and again about this word or that word, but actually it's not the word or what is in the book, but it's the understanding of the reality appearing right now that has to be developed, and the letting go is of the ignorance of the reality itself. But let's see if Ajahn would like to add more on the point about, you mentioned about the letting go of ignorance and the ignorance of a word. Ajahn, did you hear Leanne's point, comment?
Sorry again, I forgot to turn on. All right. I think that usually is ignorance or understanding of what appears to be truthful. See, that usually there's no thinking about what appears at all. But at moment of hearing something about it and about its truth, it's the beginning of not as before, no attention, no chanta interest, but it's so very true that it can be studied, it can be known, rather just not understanding anything at all. That's why begin to listen to the word that talk about or represent the reality, like ignorance. What is it? Is it there now? There is seeing. Is there any understanding of seeing? Or when someone asks, is there any understanding of seeing or what is seeing? No answer, because not understanding it. And that is real at that moment. It's a reality which does not and cannot understand the truth of what is there. So that can be the beginning of what is there as it is in a day. Usually no one think about ignorance at all. But at moment of seeing and experiencing anything, hearing, thinking, no understanding of the truth that it's not there anymore, whether it's true or not. This is the beginning to understand. So understand is different from the moment when there's no understanding of that which appears at all. Two different kinds of reality. There is a reality, understanding, that which is now appears so real. So nobody can say that it's not real. It's real. It's a reality. So the truth is that there is that which appears and it's real, because nobody can change its characteristic to other thing at all. This is the beginning to understand what is there in a moment. And no one at all, but it's only listening. And there is a very careful considering about the truth. So it's to begin to understand what is there arises. So it's there. If it does not arise, how can it appear as it is? And is this right? And when it's right, it is the understanding, not ignorance about that which appears. What is there now? That which is there by conditions, because no one can make it arise at all. And is that right? The understanding is there to know whether it's right or wrong. At moment of understanding, there's no ignorance, not ignorance as before, not knowing anything about that which appears at all. It begins to know what is real when it's there. And what is the truth of it can be studied, can be understood, it can be understood little by little. And at moment of understanding, no one there at all. It is right understanding, not ignorance, not wrong understanding. So at moment of understanding, it let go the wrong understanding and ignorance of that object, little by little. So when we talk about what are there in life, It is the beginning of understand what are there in life. And when we talk about what are there in life, it's the beginning of understanding the truth of that which is there in life by conditions. And the understanding itself, at moment of understanding, it let go wrong understanding and ignorance. Anytime understanding is understanding and ignorance is ignorance. Without understanding, there must be ignorance again and again and again. But at moment of understanding, it is a moment of letting go wrong understanding, which does not understand that. Anytime understanding is there, it let go wrong understanding. So we talk about what are there in life from moment to moment, different realities. And we use the word realities because they are real. Each one is real. It's conditioned to arise to be only that and then gone. It cannot be changed from seeing to be hearing instead or to like or dislike. Each has its own characteristic by each different conditions. And is it right? When it's the understanding of the truth, it let go ignorance and take that for something permanent, little by little, at level of intellectual understanding in the beginning, and then develop on and on to be directly understand that which is there as usual without understanding. But when there is understanding about the truth of it and it develops on, it arises directly aware of that characteristic and understand the truth that one has learned and understood before as intellectual understanding. That's why without understanding intellectually, there is no condition to understand what is there directly as it is, one at a time. And that is moment of letting go, no matter understanding at what level. At level of intellectual understanding about direct awareness, but direct awareness hasn't arisen yet. How can there be the understanding of the difference between sati at level of listening, considering at that very moment, and the moment when it is directly understand what is there as you wish, as it is, by conditions. So right understanding, understand the difference level of understanding at level of intellectual understanding and that which is directly understanding what is there. That it can be known, that it can be studied, because we talk about it, but it's not yet that level of directly study the characteristic which is there as one has heard and understood. So understanding is a reality. Whenever it arises, it understands, little by little, developing on and on until it's small, very sharp and very keen enough just to understand more about just one reality. Let go the other reality by awareness with understanding of that which appears little by little until it attains the higher level. But the Veda realizing the truth stage by stage. So true right now, as one had heard, because it is true from the very beginning. So the confidence of the truth developed to understand more, hearing more time to think about it, more condition to understand it.
Thank you, Ajahn. I heard toward the end you mentioned, so understanding also understand the level of understanding at this moment.
Yes, whether it's the direct understanding of our reality or just understand the truth of it, to think about it more, to understand it more careful, considering about that which is now appear, beginning to know that we are talking about that which is now appearing, and the truth of it so subtle that it can be object of enlightenment of its truth. More understanding and more letting go the other reality, so it can be aware of just one reality when time comes.
Yeah. So does that mean for example, intellectual understanding, the Chestasika that arise with the citta in the previous, at this moment, say at this moment, if there is an intellectual understanding, so there's panya arise, and then to understand the object, and then like a reality, then the next not the next how do you call it, the next process of citta, the my door by my door there will be another citta accompanied by panya to understand that panya that just disappear, that just fallen away, and then understand that level of panya is at such and such level, say intellectual understanding. I don't know if my understanding is correct, and if I describe, like.
Just before Ajahn answers, Leanne, I think you're trying to, what Ajahn describing is when understanding arises, it can be known as understanding, but it's not necessary to think about the moment by moment means by which it occurs. So that kind of thing of this moment and then followed by a process, that's all sort of book knowledge, not related to actually the arising of understanding, which knows that there is a moment of understanding at an intellectual level, or direct understanding if it's direct understanding. So we can get very caught up in trying to work out the mechanics of it, but that really doesn't help to recognize the moment, or doesn't help is not a condition for understanding to arise another time. It's more about appreciating what is the study of what is presently appearing at the present moment.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I see your point. But the reason I asked, just because like understanding will understand the level of that understanding. So I said it can't understand itself. That's why I'm asking the question. Like, of course, understanding cannot experience that panya as just a seeker arising at that moment. It cannot understanding itself, right? Therefore, it has to be in the next process or another process after. That's
right.
the point.
It would have to be a subsequent moment. Yes.
Yep. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
We can just say it can't be exactly the same moment. It would be a subsequent moment.
Okay.
Of understanding.
That's why it's always nimitta. But like now, thinking about the characteristic of panya and understanding that it's the Dhamma and it understands what appears, is it direct understanding of panya, or is it right thinking about panya, intellectual understanding about panya? So it can be known now what kind of panya it is, whether it really is direct understanding of the characteristic of panya when it appears, or whether it's just the wise reflection about panya now.
And just to add to what we were discussing, experientially, there's no differentiation between the moment of understanding and the understanding of what level the understanding is. It's not as though it's one and then the other sequentially because things are happening so quickly. So again, the mechanics of it doesn't have to be sort of delved into, but Ajahn is just making the point that when understanding arises, it is apparent, whether at the same moment or a subsequent moment is beside the point. It's apparent what level that understanding is, whether it's theoretical or direct.
Maybe what just happened, it's already gone. But after the discussion of the processes and so many processes before we get an impression at all, it dawned on me how amazing a moment of Satipatthana has to be, because well, how can we, from billions and billions of citta moments and I don't know how many objects, come to the point that the Buddha had, and that's only a beginning of directly knowing one such moment, one such object. So at that moment, now I'm thinking, but there was a little moment of amazement, and I guess that's what Ajahn is referring to. At that moment, although very far from understanding, there was a letting go of the idea I can do Satipatthana. So maybe moments like that.
And if it's not known, then it's not panya.
And the characteristic of reality, before we would say about citta in process, because it's not known, and what can be known is that which is now appearing. We don't mind what doorway, but it's there. And by understanding a little more, there can be the understanding that different doorways are there. But now, does anyone know whether when is the sense door and when is the mind door? At all. Just talk about the doorway, but what about the characteristic of that object? For example, nothing arises and falls away at all now. Why not? Even they are different. At moment of seeing, there cannot be hearing. So how come hearing not together at all in truth, but they do not appear as they are different moments at all? Because the succession of that which is so rapidly arising and falling away, what appears is that which the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then thinking. This is to be known that even right now, at moment of seeing, there is thinking in between. In between. Why? Because seeing is seen. The object is only that which can be seen when it impinges on the eye base, only that. But what appears is not only that. It appears as something. Flowers, table, chair, and so on, at once, as soon as one opens one's eyes. So it is the beginning to understand that actually there is no precise understanding of the truth of that which is there when they appear together. But when there is the moment of seeing, understanding is there to know that it has to be only seeing. This is the words to be food of thought and considering carefully to understand the truth of what is heard. Seeing sees, but there is not only seeings in one's life. There are other reality moments appearing, like hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. They are different, but all are real. Learning to understand what is real. And this is the way to let go the idea of I see, I hear, I think, or I like. It has to be very firmly foundation, basis, the ground of understanding of the truth. So it can be confidence of the truth that actually without the words from the enlightened one, there's no right understanding of what is there as it is at all. Ignorance, after seeing, no understanding the truth of it. Whatever is there is conditioned to be different, to arise at different time too. This is to understand clearly, so there can be more understanding of the truth of the word that Buddha taught about the process, or about the Cetasika and so on. At this moment, seeing is real, liking is real, anger is real. They are real. This is the beginning to understand what is meant by reality and no one at all. Otherwise, it's one's own idea all the time about what is heard. But what about the truth of that which appears in life, beginning to be carefully studying the truth, beginning from moment of seeing, moment of hearing, not same moment and so on, learning to understand the truth as the truth. And so when one hears about Dhamma in another language, Dhamma is that which is rare. It has its own characteristic as it is one by one, not the same one at all. Beginning to understand what is meant by Dhamma, what is meant by reality, it let go the idea of I, because it's just that characteristic which nobody can change, and it has arisen by conditions. Firm confidence of the truth of no thing, but each reality has its own characteristic, and it's not always there. It just when it appears at moment of seeing, it's there seen. After that, it's not seen. It means that it's not there anymore. But no understanding of the absolute truth, why it's not there anymore. It has arisen by conditions and then falls away instantly. Is that right? And that can be studied on and on to understand more. Confidence of reality is just a reality, no one at all. So there can be more study with understanding no one, a reality. Seeing is a reality. And then later, there is always that which experiences the object from birth. But sometimes there is attachment, and sometimes there's pleasant feeling, and sometimes there is life, and sometimes there can be memory and so on, thinking about this and that, to learn about the truth of life and to understand that what are real, they are all Dhamma, but they are different little by little, that we don't have to name Cetasika, but liking, disliking, seeing, memory, feeling, is it the same reality or different realities? Learn to understand different ones and understand that which is there only experiences an object, but it cannot like or dislike. It just experience through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So that is a characteristic which is conditioned from birth to death. And it can continue on, but we don't have to think about that at all. But to understand the difference between the moment of seeing, at that moment, there's no liking or disliking, no attachment with moment of seeing at all. But when there is seeing, sometimes there is anger and sometimes there is attachment, different realities. So we learn the difference between that which is achieved of experiencing the object from moment to moment in life, not that which like or dislike. So we have different words for those realities to show that they are different. One is that which arises an experience, it doesn't like or dislike. And the other sometimes arises by conditions to be attachment, and sometimes it's conditioned to dislike or anger at that very moment. How come? There must be conditions for each different one to begin to understand that actually no one can have anything at will, because even will or intention is not that which experience the object, only experience the object, but it has the will to do, and so on. Just learn to understand reality and learn to understand the word that represents this reality and that reality. That's why there is Dhamma, and then Citta, and then Cetasikas, and later on through Vata and on, to understand that actually they are as they are, not anyone at all. And at moment of understanding, it begins to let go the idea of I see, or I like, or I dislike, because no one wish to have anger, unpleasant feeling, but it's there by condition. And learn to understand the conditions for what is there, little by little, to let go the idea of self, to have more confidence at level of intellectual understanding. Why it is only intellectual understanding? Because it's not directly understand the characteristic of one reality at a time. That's why it's just understanding that they are not the same, but not at moment when they are there. That's why there can be the understanding that there can be more understanding, but the understanding has to develop. Like studying any object, the beginning is not the end. It develops little by little. So the development of understanding what is there, begin to understand. It's uncontrollable for that moment to arise, to be seeing or hearing or anger or pleasant feeling, different realities. We learn to understand the truth that they are different realities, conditioned to arise as soon as it has arisen, following instantly. To have more confidence of the truth, to condition higher and the more understanding of the truth. What we have learned can be directly experienced, but not by will or by intention or trying wrongly to do as I can do, but in truth, when it let go the idea of self a little more, reality can arise and have more understanding of that which has been learned before as it is. What has been learned show up as it is, to that which is strong enough to understand the truth of it. Otherwise, there must be doubt about what is there. For example, now, doubt about the arising and falling way of seeing and that which appears. So doubt is a reality. What is there is a reality. Understanding reality as not self, as reality itself, letting go the idea of I can do or I will do or I know or I understand. Before all can be understood as no one and no thing as it is, stage by stage. That is the path leading to enlighten the truth of this moment, that it is conditioned and it has a reason. So it's there and then gone unknowingly, but it can be known. Not by self or not understanding how come, but to understand more, to let go, the clinging to that as I or thing, little by little. The only way, and it's now. Begin again, and begin again, and begin again. Because this is not the same as before. New one all the time. Like we try to walk from this point to the other point, but before one can reach the other point, it's so very, very difficult. Can a baby run?
No, Ajahn.
How long it will take from this point to the other point to walk to that goal or place that one would like to go? But there must be virya and khanti to walk, but to understand what is there now needs more virya and khanti and satya and adhidana parami. And at moment of understanding, it let go the idea of I will try this or I will do that. But understanding truthfully of what level of understanding is there about that which is now appears at moment of seeing, smelling, tasting, no matter what is there. Listening to music, cooking in the kitchen, or any moment in life. The truth is the truth. It's there. And one can understand ignorance when it's the moment of not understanding the truth. And learn more about each moment of citta, of life, that which experiences the object, that which is achieved is citta, from moment of birth to death, and the other mental factor is cetasika. But we don't have to name or call it when it's there. It's not that which cannot experience the object. It likes the object. It thinks about the object, and so on. Not remember the word, but understand the truth. That citta cannot be cetasika. We understand what is meant by citta, and that which like, remember, and so on are cetasikas. Even they arise together, but they are different. They have their own characteristics, their own functions.
Sita, I'm wondering if you have any questions, because you've been a little quiet for the last few weeks and a lot of this is quite new to you. Is there anything you don't understand or anything you would like explain more, or do you have any questions of your own?
Your microphone have one open.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Last time. Sita.
I think Sita's just about to answer Nina. Let's let Sita go first, and then
like Ajahn was saying, it needs a lot of patience and consideration. And in my consideration, it distinguish between this habitual daily identification to differentiate, and the other part, which is a habitual understanding. These two to differentiate. And then if you have this habitual understanding, you come closer to the truth. Yeah, that was I was considering and thinking over. And and it has to be moment at this present moment. It must be daily. Habitual. I differentiate this habitual identification from self.
And the main point is it's not you or I or anyone who has the habitual understanding, because the understanding is a Dhamma. It's a conditioned reality. It doesn't belong to anyone. So we think that it's I who has the considering or the identification or the understanding, but actually no I to have anything at all. So the panya, the understanding, like any other reality, like seeing or visible object or metta or dosa, is just a reality that arises when there are the right conditions and falls away instantly. And when understanding arises, it accumulates just a little, so that gradually it gets stronger and stronger, but it doesn't belong to anyone, and no one can do anything. No one can make it arise. No one can stop it arising if it has arisen already.
Yeah, exactly.
So no one has habitual understanding, but it begins to develop from the careful considering and wise reflection.
Yeah, and unknowingly.
Unknowingly.
So amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. It's amazing.
And it has to, as you say, always be at the present moment, because there is no other moment.
Yeah.
Beyond expectation. So gradually, by hearing more and understanding a little bit more about different realities, it is
considering.
In the considering, it is the condition for a little more letting go of the idea of something or someone there, and understanding begins to get used to the different realities and begins to develop. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sita. And Nina, what were you wishing? You were about to say something?
Yes, about death. Last time we talked about death, and also Haji took part of the discussion, and he said he doesn't like to die, and it is so natural in us. We don't want to die. And then the answer is, but it is just like this moment. Each moment is death, but still it's rather difficult to get this point, because when we think of death, we still find it difficult. You also said that Tadao brought up the subject of death, but I did not follow that because it was on the other day, another conversation. So I think it's useful to hear more that death is just this moment.
That's why we talk about the different kinds of death. And in the deepest sense, each moment there is the rising and falling away of reality. So there is actually death at each moment. And when there is the understanding more and more about death now and different realities arising and falling away now, then it becomes more apparent there's no one here, no one to die. And this is a condition for less fear, less worry, less concern, less thought about what will happen to me, because there are just different dharmas arising and falling away by conditions now, or at the end of life, or next life, or last life, on and on. So Ajahn said in one of the discussions, are you afraid of seeing now or hearing now, or what will arise at the next moment? Because actually death can be any time now. And there is death in the sense that there is the falling away of each reality. So understanding the truth of realities now, the realities which arise and falling away, is the understanding of true death and the condition for less worry, less fear, less thought about oneself. But I'm sure Ajahn will add more on the topic too.
Because also you said nobody can help having fear. It's conditioned to have fear of death. It's conditioned. So we cannot force anything. But so long as there's no direct understanding of the arising and falling away of realities, it's hard to get this point. So it's good if Ajahn can elaborate a little more on this.
Would you like to sleep?
Excuse me, Ajahn.
You would like to sleep too? Or no sleep at all in your life? Or today, tonight?
Sleep, Nina.
Do you like to sleep, Nina?
Oh, I like to sleep very much.
What is sleeping?
Because I feel tired very often.
At moment of not seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting, thinking, right?
Yes.
So in truth, there is moment that one feel like not to experience anything. But that is because of thinking of I, no understanding of the truth. But when we think about what is it, birth, death, and moment when there's no hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, that we call sleep. Many people would like to sleep long time, 4 hours or 10 hours and so on. But they have the idea that they will wake up, see again, hear again, right? So they are not afraid of sleep at all. They are not afraid to sleep, right?
Afraid to sleep.
What about death? See, not understanding the truth that it is only one moment which arises and ends up the personality, this being, not to be this being again anymore after that moment. It deprives whatever is taken for self or I to be nothing as it is now. But since there is seeing after seeing, hearing after seeing, after hearing, and so on. So no understanding of what is meant by it's not there anymore, never to arise again. So when there is the understanding of what death is, it's unknown moment, like next moment, who knows what would it be? It can be anything, even death, the end of life, last moment of this life. But it does not show up that next time it is death. That's why no fear of death. But since it has to arise by conditions, only one moment, who knows that moment? So we are afraid of that which is not known, like death. Just have the idea of death, not to be this person again anymore after death, that's all. But there are conditions for whatever arises after death, just like birth in this life, after death, a past life. That's why if we don't think about death, just keep on going as usual and don't know whether the next moment would be death or seeing or hearing, as we don't know while we are alive. So it can be death at any time. No time to fear death. If we don't think about death, because that moment is not known, and it's just like a wanka, not experience any object. Suddenly, instantly, only a moment. How short it is. It's only the idea about losing the personality or this person as I am in this life, not to be I anymore. But there must be the other person, not this person at all, but conditioned from what are there from eons and eons, including this life, to condition next life or next moment after death. There must be birth after death. And when one was born or is born, people are glad, congratulate, and so on. It's exactly the same of any moment. That's all. It's exactly the same as at the moment. It's conditioned to arise just once in samsara and never arise again. No matter seeing or death moment or sleep or whatever, only once in samsara. Depending on condition, there must be life after death. So what are you afraid of? next life, or what?
It's Ajahn. It's the idea of having to give up or giving up the end of this personality anymore. It's just an idea that we are afraid of.
And if one knows that one will be born in heaven, are you afraid of being born there?
It's the end of this personality, as you say, no more.
That's right. That is ignorance and clinging to whatever is there. That is pavasava, clinging to the idea of self or clinging to being.
Yes,
No
yes.
matter what it brings. That's right. Even heaven is much better than, more pleasant than this human being world. But no one would like to die, to be born there, right?
Yeah.
Because of ignorance and cling to that which is there now. Instantly, whatever is there is the object of clinging.
Like if this question, would you die now to go to heaven? So what I'm thinking that when I'm old, choose my.
So, what is the best thing in this life, this moment?
Right understanding.
Yes. Only that. But it all depends on conditions to have that kind of thinking or the other kind of thinking. But the best thing is we don't know what would happen even next moment. That's why understanding what is there as it can be by conditions. But there is firm confidence of the truth of the best thing in life is the understanding of the truth of what is there now. Because it's so true and it appears so it can be known when there's more considering about the truth of that, even while listening. But when there's not enough conditions, there can be thinking about other things while listening. So there's no understanding of what is said. All by condition, see, birth or death, or seeing or hearing. There are only different moments. Only different moments. And at moment of death, it's not known, like at moment of being fast asleep. So ignorance is at moment of fear death. Is the truth. Uncontrollable moments, no matter it's seeing or death. Just exactly the same, one moment. Is anyone afraid of next moment?
Next moment.
It can be death or seeing or anything, a moment only. Uncontrollable, and there must be conditions for such moments. It's time for that very moment, that's all, like at the moment, like any other moment. It's time for that moment. And then birth, is it pleasant? New life, new seeing, hearing. One clings to this life, and one clings to other life, next life, and on and on. Never end up. As long as not understanding what is there. It's just a reality and a moment conditioned to arise. No one can stop the arising of whatever now arising. Are you afraid of just one moment arising? No matter what, it's one moment arising by conditions. Ignorance is the fear of one moment arising as death. But death is just like any moment arising. Only one and then gone. And next moment is next life instantly.
It's lack of confidence in the teachings, Ajahn. I think lack of confidence.
But if there's no fear of next moment, why fear death? Exactly the same, just one moment. What about the fear in this life? Not death yet. Fear fear thinking, fear hearing, fear attachment. No fear of pleasant feeling. Why fear a moment of not experience anything there? One moment. A moment which is not seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. That's all. A moment which is not seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So why fear? It can be now too, anytime.
Achanka, you mentioned like if at after the moment of death, after duty jitta, there might be rebirth, reborn in heaven. However, I've been watching a lot of animals, and I think my fear is not sort of dying, but where rebirth is. Like animals, it's not a good existence unless you're somebody's pet and get looked after. But most of the wild animals that I've been watching, it's not a pleasant world. They're not kind to each other. They fight each other for food. And of course, there's no Dhamma to be heard in those realms. So I think for me, that's the fear, not so much actually dying.
So what should be the object of fear?
Well, I think it's probably unpleasant, very painful feeling, and also not having opportunities to hear the Dhamma.
That's why, as long as death hasn't come yet, there can be time to study, to learn about whatever is there now appearing.
Yes.
And think can be condition for studying Dhamma now too. That is Marana Nusati.
What do you mean it's Marana Sati if you're studying the Dhamma now?
because one can die any moment. And before dying, what is the best thing?
The moments before dying is to have kusala jittas.
After death, we don't know whether there can be moment of listening, hearing, considering Dhamma or not. So thinking of death in the right way, with understanding, it can condition urgency, virya, to understand the truth right now or anytime by conditions. Not to be sad or sorrow or whatever, losing this life. There must be life after death. There must be next moment after this moment, depending on conditions. It can be death or seeing or thinking and so on. But thinking of death, that it can condition the plane of ant or elephant or whatever, not conditioned to hear and understand the truth at all. And now it's time to listen, to develop understanding by conditions, that's all. And that is parami too, virya parami, thinking of the best moment in life. The best reality of all kinds of reality is understanding the truth. Even is there now, it can be known little by little until it can realize the truth at moment of arising and falling away by nimitta. Just conditioned reality from moment to moment, that's all. No one there at all. Fear is a reality, dosa. Distract the object, the stage of death.
Yes, when I contemplate death, sorry.
Nothing to be afraid of. It can be after this moment, no time to be afraid. And it is like that, as that. It cannot be known when it will be, when it comes. No time to regret or to fear, shorter than the condition for fear to fear it.
And Ajahn, I think that fear comes from the idea of self, like Nina was talking earlier. Sorry to lead this personality, but I think that's what the fear is, that it's the unknown, and I think it's a case of I won't know, I won't know where I am or anything like that. But then occasionally it's the, there's confidence in the teachings that there's nothing can be done anyway. Like there's death and there's rebirth, and where it is or what it is, there's no control over that. And then when I have that, when there's that confidence, it's all okay. There is no fear, no matter where there is a new existence.
Sita, but those who have fear, who completely eradicate fear, are anagamis. Sotapanna or Sakadamida, they already eradicate the wrong views, but they still have fear. So they still come.
Thank you, Hati. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask Nina, what is this personality that one's afraid of losing? Because yes, like you mentioned, Azita, actually, usually it's an idea of self or someone there, but actually, what is it? moments of attachment, no loss at all, and they're falling away anyway. Moments of ignorance, no loss, all gone. And even moments of understanding, they're gone as soon as they arise now anyway, and they accumulate, they condition more understanding in future. So what is the personality that one mind's losing? It's actually just a fantasy about a self there. So nothing that isn't being lost on a moment-to-moment basis anyway. So actually it's being lost at each moment. What is taken for a personality, what is taken for a self.
Yes, that's a good point, Sarah. Yes.
So I think, as Ajahn stresses, the more understanding there is of dhammas now, which arise and fall away, the less concern there is about loss of a self or a personality or someone there. And there is more appreciation that there is loss at each moment. Whatever arises is lost instantly. And there's no fear now of losing seeing or losing hearing or losing kindness, because there's the appreciation. Whatever arises is gone instantly anyway. So it's just the same.
John, I have a question. The understanding, the panya that is accrued in this lifetime, will it not continue into the next existence? Because understanding is the most important thing that I cherish, and it is the Dhamma, the truth is my refuge. So it eradicates ignorance, and people speak of accumulation. So I'm interested to hear from you about that, please. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, it's at moment of understanding, any moment of understanding, right? It's there. Once it's there, even it has gone, arising no falling away, but it's accumulated from moment to moment. At moment of hearing, this time, today, and long time ago in the past, different by conditions. The understanding is more developed, little by little. Once you came to Thailand, you can know and think about Thailand. Once you have experienced the truth, never lost, it's there, conditioned to understand clearer and better until the end, Arahata.
Yes, thank you kindly, Ajahn. I think what I fear then is, for example, on a very hot day and I'm experiencing a bit of heat stroke, and then, as we say in Japan, I feel darui or a certain laziness. That's what I fear. I can always project or think into the future any number of things to be fearful about, but actually what's here now is chitta. Objects and various rupa arise and fall away, and it just seems that the chitta is here in the variety of it, and that continues. And I don't know, I think I fear is my own laziness sometimes when I'm feeling a bit under the heat, for example.
But when it's right understanding, it does not fear. At moment of fear, it's ignorance, for sure. Not understanding the truth, which is that just very short and then gone. No matter heat is so very hot and so on. Hell is hotter than that level of heat in this human being world. See, unexpected all the time, what would be, what degree, understanding or ignorance or laziness, or by conditions there is thinking about the benefit. The most precious moment is the understanding, no matter when, even right now, to understand just a little bit more as it is conditioned reality. That's all. That's all. Death momentarily, death never to arise again. Nothing can be object of fear because of the understanding of the truth. It's not that long. It's just in a moment and then gone. Why think about it? It's gone. Why so concerned about it? It's gone. What about the understanding of what is there now? This conditioned moment of a little bit attention to the characteristic of that which appears, not to forget. And when there's more understanding just arise even at level of it's real, it's a reality. Only heat is a reality. Sound is a reality. Whatever is that is a reality. So very short and then gone. Never last. And this is life, the true life. Nobody can change. It's only a moment of experiencing an object, no matter through the 6 stars or not through the six stars at moment of sleep. But no one can stop the arising of that which arises and experience, no matter the object of the 6 star or not the object of the 6 stars. By conditions, no one can stop the way it is. No one can change the way it is. It has arisen already and gone already. That's all. Just live with the idea of self and ignorance if there's no right consideration of the truth of what is there. Begin to understand the truth and more understanding of the truth.
Yes, Ajahn, the life, the world is one moment of chitta and then gone. And how much of my life, how much of time is spent not even present to many, many moments, micro moments passing. So thank you so very much for your instruction and wisdom on this topic of fear. It's a part of life in this realm, and just to embrace the reality at hand, temperature. So there's no point in lamenting what's gone or fearing what is yet to come, because there is no self even to predict or condition or make anything arise. So thank you so very much, Ajahn. Thank you, Ka.
I appreciate your understanding very much.
Okay. I think it's about time we finish up. So thank you very much, Ajahn and everyone.
Sorry, Kap Achan.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,ท่านอาจารย์
Thank you.
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์ Thank you very
See
much.
you
กราบ
next
เท้าท่าน
week.
อาจารย์ค่ะ
Thank you everybody.
อนุโมทนาค่ะคุณเซราคุณจอห์น
See you
and
next
everyone
time.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jonathan.
อนุโมทนาคุณเมตตา
Thank you, Chanti.
Nice to see you. Dave.
Thank you.
อนุโมทนา
อนุโมทนา
คุณวรศักดิ์คะ